Conquer the Noise is a podcast produced by Unconquered, an independent agency challenging brand perspective through redefined content. This podcast is dedicated to telling stories of outstanding ideas and people who have found their way amongst the chatter. I'm Jonathan Hanson, Chief Creative Officer at Unconquered, and I'll be your host of Conquer the Noise. Today, we're speaking with Mark Abrials, CMO and co-founder of Avocado Mattress. Mark has a deep commitment to giving back and running his company in an ethical way. We talk about the initiatives they undertake, the brainwashing many companies are doing to appear more eco-friendly, and how small actions can lead to big results. Thanks, Mark, for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, Mark, why don't you just give a little background to our listeners at home who aren't familiar with Avocado?
Oh, okay. Avocado, we are a organic mattress and bedding company. We have offices in Hoboken, New Jersey, and we manufacture everything in the United States and Los Angeles. And we make non-toxic, organic, healthy mattresses using natural materials that are, well, we believe, better for you and better for the planet.
So, looking into Avocado, looking into a little bit of your history, it looks like you've been in marketing for roughly 30 years or so, starting from the Washington Post to founding your own marketing agency to now being a co-founder and CMO of Avocado. How did that life progression? That's a pretty big change going from agency owner working in-house at a newspaper to now owner and head of marketing at a mattress for company. So I would love to hear how that progression led up to that moment, and talk through some of like the moments that got you there.
Well, it's an interesting journey, I suppose. Looking back on it, it all makes sense, but I probably didn't understand the path at the time. I've always been an entrepreneur and worked in different environments like that. But for me, if I reflect on it, it's an awful lot like if you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, the whole concept of 10,000 hours. Mm-hmm. The idea that all your different experiences, as you add them together, eventually gets to the point where you're really good at something. That's kind of been my path. I started off with marketing at the Washington Post, and left the Washington Post to start my own ad agency here in the DC area, and did that for 20 years, everything from advertising, general marketing, public relations, design, branding, and other things. And over the course of that work, working with consumer companies, with technology companies, I think I built up a breadth of experience and other things that just kind of, I think, made me uniquely positioned to be where I am now. I never would have thought that I would work at a mattress and bedding company. But then again, I don't think any of the other founders that are at our company would have thought the same thing either, And they all have similar sort of 10,000 hour stories of how their, unusual experiences and other things kind of are now uniquely appropriate for what we're doing with Avocado.
Mm-hmm. So your other founders, there's 5, is that correct?
Yeah, there's a total of 5 of us, right? So there's myself, there's Jeff DeAndrea, there's Dan DeAndrea, there is Jay Decker, and V. Nguyen. So a total of 5 of us, and we each have a different sort of expertise. Mine is in marketing. Jeff's is more in the management and the strategy. Dan is more in the finance and operations. V is in the finance and the manufacturing, and so on. So it's worked out really well because we each have a different skill set that we bring to the table, and it's helped us really kind of get Avocado off the ground and humming right along.
So how did you meet? Were you all friends before? Was it
years and years ago? It was Jeff actually worked at my office and rented space for me years and years ago, and I met Jeff, and then years later we worked together at a sort of an extension of my ad agency that we started off as a new business, and we worked together for a number of years. But we were always in the service industry, always doing work for other clients and other brands and other things. And I think we all had a burning desire to do what we do for other people, but actually for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so Avocado was just a way that we stumbled into an opportunity, and it felt right, and then we could sort of leverage everything that we'd done in the past.
Mm-hmm. So when you're at your agency, was there an aha moment or some sort of process that led to that transition to Avocado? I know for myself, speaking as a co-founder, what led me here was just a level of frustration, wanting to do more with my career, wanting to do more with commerce, wanting to do more for good, for adding a purpose-driven business. Did you have an experience or just have hit a certain point in your career where you thought there's got to be more than this?
Well, a lot of it, you get that at an agency business. You get that with almost every client that you have, because you can push them in different directions, but you can generally only push them so far. And sometimes there are big leaps that you'd like to get them to take, but because they're too conservative or they feel too risky or different things, it's hard to kind of get them to do that. So there wasn't a specific aha moment, but just sort of a general building frustration that wouldn't it be great to be able to do something ourselves rather than when we're advising and trying to nudge people in the right path to actually do it where we were in control. And so for us, it was just a matter of when we actually found something that we thought we could do successfully, and and we all had a strong way to give input and guidance and so to it that it felt right. So it wasn't a singular moment, but it was just sort of like growing thing that kept until we finally got Avocado started. We actually did Avocado on the side, as we were doing our other business, like all things, you started on the side and you get it going by working in evenings and weekends while you're doing your day job. And eventually you make that scary transition and you hope that it works. So that's how we did it. Mm-hmm. Same thing.
Yeah, there is always, I think, a level of fear when transitioning to new things and taking ownership and trying to take control of the direction of a business and group of people. On your website, I'm going to read a quote here that is attributed to you. It says, "Our goal is for Avocado to make healthy and responsible mattresses accessible to a broader audience. We're going to achieve this by working to redefine what it means to be an honest and socially conscious brand. We're going to inspire and drive positive change and reach as broad of an audience as possible. If we do this right, we'll motivate and engage people with what we are trying to achieve." So I think that's a great thing. And a lot of businesses, I think, say they're doing these sorts of things. So I'm really curious to how you've redefined the honest and social conscious side of the brand and how you're imparting positive change.
Well, in the agency business, what we would basically tell people is you can't make it up, right? You can't come out and say that your product is faster at this or better at that unless it really is. So you have to actually walk the talk, right? And so with Avocado, we started off definitely positioned in the green space as a natural product. But as we began to sort of really walk the talk and move things from just, natural components and other things up to organic things or certified non-toxic things, integrate giving programs and other things, what we started to do was layer in all sorts of certifications to different things, because what we wanted to do was give people a sense of trust that we are actually doing what we say we're doing, especially in the space where we are in natural and organic. There's so much greenwashing. It's really hard to believe what truly is green or know the difference between this and that, and whether you're getting what you're paying for, or it's worth the extra price, and so on. So we made the effort to go for just about every certification that we possibly can. And what that's done in the process is it helps consumers, but I think it's also made us a better business as a result. Like we started with 1% for the planet as a giving program, and then with 1% for the planet, then we eventually snapped on climate neutral. And then with climate neutral and offsetting carbon emissions, we recently just snapped on B Corp, and so on. So you do each of these things, and they have overlapping standards, and they sort of force you to keep rethinking your business on how you are helping people, helping the planet at the same time while you're making a business that is healthy as well.
Yeah, I think there's often, and maybe it's just the culture we grew up in, capitalistic culture and philosophy of business has to be done a certain way. It's bottom line for profit, and that philanthropy and profits in business don't align, right? You talked a little bit about that, about how we're seeing more of a trend of companies and brands greenwashing a lot of their corporate speak. And in some of the philosophy I've seen on the website and in the materials I've been reading about avocado, it calls for radical transparency as a core value. And that word radical to me really stood out. I would love to hear your thoughts on like what your ideas, I guess, of what radical transparency is, and how you're achieving that and showing that.
Yeah, radical transparency, I think, is a really sort of a fun concept. And basically what we mean by it is that, the typical marketing would say that we would want to go out and we'd want to say that this is, better or organic or something. And we'd say it in a few words, and we'd have a backup sentence with it. And that would be all that we'd use to substantiate a claim. And so we've done the opposite. If you go to our website, we have a lot of content. I mean, you could probably spend hours reading all about our materials, how we source them, how we actually make them ourselves, what's in them. You can really, really go down the full rabbit hole if you want to. And I think that that adds an awful lot of credibility to things, and it builds a lot of trust with consumers, and it raises the sort of standard that I think for other people as well, because it makes it harder for somebody just to say this is an organic product without sort of backing it up with all the other things that give people the same level of confidence. So, we do it because, like I said, it helps customers, and we do believe we have an advantage in that regard. But we also do it just to kind of push other people along and make them sort of follow suit.
Mm-hmm. I spent several hours on your site reading through all the content. You're right, you have a lot. I love the magazine, love some of the videos. But I also learned and didn't realize that through 1% for the planet, your donations have been working with City Harvest. Some of the efforts were around recycling programs in Haiti, planting trees up to 48,000 with the Arbor Day Foundation. So what personally drives you to push these commitments forward? People think like it's expensive to do these. It's time consuming. It's costly, and kind of glaze over. But for you, what's that driving principle that sort of pushes all that stuff aside?
Well, it's funny. With 1% for the planet, we started when our business was much smaller, right? And when we started, 1% of a small number is a smaller number, right? And as the business has grown, the 1% becomes quite a big number. I can only imagine what it is for Patagonia, It's probably quite a significant number when you get to 1% of a business like that. The concept that I don't think people always recognize is that it's a commitment of 1% regardless of your profitability. And it's not 1% of your of your profits. It's 1% of your revenue before your profits. And so once you kind of make that commitment, it sort of is kind of, it's almost liberating, right? So then you've got like, all right, well, what can I do with this great funds, right? You know, some of the brands that are member organizations, you know, they'll pick one nonprofit to support and support it, you know, maybe every year or just from year to year and so on. We've just taken the approach that we would jump around, and generally since the beginning, almost every month we would pick a different charity every month or two, and just bounce around. And sometimes we've done it based on what's been going on, you know, as a result of the wildfires in California. You know, we pick a conservation group associated with that, or now we have one that's sort of environmentally related to the COVID crisis and so on. So, but it's just allowed us to support lots of different groups, and it also has allowed our team to kind of get involved as well. We actually let people vote on which one to support next, and so on, and do it that way. But yeah, I think we've done, it's got to be close to 30 different charities or so right now.
Oh, wow, that's significant.
Yeah, it's an awful lot, and so it's a big number, and actually it was a part of B Corp with 1% of the planet, which is a nice sort of parallel organization. I believe the giving percentage is actually well over 1%.
So do you think do you have brands that you look up to that you find inspiring for yourself that are, you know, taking the same sort of efforts, owning responsibility for the environmental impact that they have as a business?
Yeah, you know, I've got to imagine it's probably the same one that a lot of brands like us would say. For me, it's Patagonia.
Yeah,
and for Patagonia, it's the idea that they're an activist company. They actually, you know, will say that in different marketing and things that they're not afraid to take a stand. You know, when we first started, you know, when you go out there with some of these opinions, you'll get back, you know, feedback that, oh, you know, be quiet, climate change is a hoax, and, you know, all this sort of stuff. And it's easy to sort of want to move back into this sort of safe, sheltered, PC thing that doesn't really take much of a stand. But, you know, I firmly believe that as individuals and as companies, you know, you have to take a stand. You have to have an opinion. And Patagonia does this remarkably well, you know, on environmental issues, on sourcing, on their transparency and other things. So, yeah, they're definitely our, I guess you could say, our heroes if we were to look to anybody.
Do you think that the 10-year to 2030 green pledge number, I'm curious what your thoughts on why you think it's taking some brands longer than others to get there. And do you think that's fast enough?
You know, for some, like, that are pledging that, like, I believe Microsoft just came out and pledged to be like carbon negative by 2025 or 2030. But, you know, with that, you have to always keep in mind that for some businesses, they use a lot. They create an awful lot. So offsetting for them is a much bigger impact. And also, I think for legacy businesses, and that's just a business that's been around a lot longer than we have, it's harder. You know, it's much harder. We've managed to get carbon neutral. We were carbon neutral last year, certified last year. And this year, we're actually carbon negative. And have gone well over that. So we've been able to do it, but most of it is because, you know, we started off as a direct-to-consumer brand, you know, heavily leveraging technology and other things. So it made us a little bit more agile, I think, than other people, and also a little more prone to taking bold, risky moves that larger, more encumbered organizations are kind of slow or reluctant to do,
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes, at least for us and as another creative, I'm sure those initial steps in taking those big moves you always find there's a little bit of fear, right? There's always a little second guessing. At least I know I experienced that as a business leader, as a creative, as someone who makes things for a living. How do you deal with that?
How do you deal with the
How do
fear
you
of?
how do you deal with those emotions? Like, I think a lot of times that's what stops people from doing things.
I guess we didn't start with these sort of boulder strokes, because I think the boulder strokes, if we had done that in the beginning, we never would have gotten anything off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We really started off with, let's do a great product that's got nice natural elements in it and other things. But when you start to realize that you can make bolder moves and make bigger strokes, you just feel more confident leaping from one place to the other, and you have to sort of gain some success in seeing that people value what you're doing, because if all the other brands aren't going carbon neutral and supporting 1% for the planet, before at the top line level, other stuff, that puts you at a competitive disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
Organic costs a heck of a lot more than it does to do natural, and then it does even to do synthetic and all this other stuff. So it puts you at a significant, you're starting at the back of the race, so to speak. But when people value it and start to prefer it, or you start to build an audience for it, and other things, it just gives you that level of confidence. And now we're pretty confident that, especially with all the craziness in the world right now, that it just feels like now more than ever, you can't be afraid of taking bolder moves and, making big things happen. And so I think as an organization, that's something that we really get excited about.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, I think that all sort of fits this orbit of culture, community, building a culture that supports that, and also one supporting your community through that. So your headquarters are in New Jersey and your production facilities are in California. I'm curious what role community plays in your business, because keeping production and inside the United States is a very deliberate decision. So I'm curious how that plays into some of your business decisions.
Yeah, we're kind of control freaks, all right? So
Mm-hmm.
we like to, we manufacture stuff in Los Angeles because we can do everything to ensure that what we're really delivering is a great product. But also, you can't do all this natural, organic, non-toxic stuff if you don't control it.
Mm-hmm.
And then because we're there, there's just so much that we can do in these local communities. We're very involved on both coasts. In Hoboken, with everything from the green business councils and other things, to out in California, we do a lot with the local charities. But at the same time, I think our retail store and our factory, they're really amazing places.
Mm-hmm.
Our retail store looks nothing like a mattress store. In fact, we have on our website, we have a virtual tour that you can take and walk around things. But, there are plants everywhere, lounge spaces. We have a kombucha bar. We do yoga classes, and we have readings and different things. Our factory is the coolest place ever. It's plants everywhere, open space, open walls, light. We're big, beautiful garden outside. It's the complete opposite of what you would expect for what we do, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been sort of especially fun to build that kind of stuff into the business, into the physical nature of the business, beyond just the marketing and the product that we sell.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of like which you thought were fun and but you really wanted to build into the business when you're creating it. How have you pulled in other inspirations from your life into that? I know, like as I said, as a business owner, it's like your baby, and you pull all these little pieces of all the things you're interested in, you love, and you try and make a career or a business out of it. How has that come together with Avocado?
Well, it's come together in a neat way because each of the sort of 5 founders that we have has different sorts of passions, right? And so, like that factory filled with plants and gardens and everything. That's all V. That's really wonderful. The way what we do we have a really large customer service team. And they're distributed across both coasts, and a lot of people are also remote. But we do a lot of things to kind of keep people together and foster teamwork and community and other things. As a mission-driven brand, what you find is that people are looking for meaningful work. They want to do something that makes them feel good. And so we've tried to pull in so many of these different things that we can to try to make the spaces, the way we communicate, and what we do publicly as a business to kind of give people value in things. And I think that's something that we've all of the partners have really done a good job in bringing forward.
You have a magazine as well, which is a very ambitious project in itself, coming from a former career as a magazine photographer, just knowing the amount of work that goes into publishing. Are you using the magazine as a way to help build that culture for Avocado Mattress to connect with your audience in an interesting way, or do you find it reflective of the internal values of the brand?
Yeah, we're getting ready to really upgrade the magazine too, and we're really excited about it. And for us, do we call it a magazine? We basically call it lifestyle. And the reason for that is we actually don't talk about our own product at all in the magazine. I'd have to go through and look, maybe there's an article, but I
didn't see much.
I don't think there are any. I mean, generally speaking, it gives us it gives us a voice to talk about everything that we care about, and whether that would be something that's a political issue, whether it would be a lifestyle thing, something environmental related, some sort of disruptor. It gives us a way to put all sorts of that content it's kind of at the peripheral of what's around being natural or organic or green or environmental or activist minded, and it just a place for that voice. And so we have an awful lot of fun with it. I don't know that it generates any direct business, but we put a ton of effort into it simply because I think it reflects our values, and then it's also just a way to stay connected with people. I mean, we actually believe that, there's some irony in that when you make a really great product, they actually don't need to come back and buy it again, not for a long time, right? So it's a way for us to keep people, engaged with all the stuff that they came to us for, and maybe indirectly evangelize for us, but otherwise, yeah, we really do it for the just as a voice to talk about all the stuff that we care about.
How do you see like the community and culture impacting each other? I know they're kind of different things, but at the same time, they're very related in almost like an organism where they're kind of feeding and working off each other a bit.
Well, what do you mean by community and culture?
Well, I think, community being the space around you, your employees, your customers, the people you're helping as far as 1% for the planet. And then culture being that just the lifestyle, right? The lifestyle you're trying to create, the culture of being aware of your impact, being aware of how your home can affect your health, sort of dipping into that lifestyle a bit?
Yeah, I think, for us, I think things over time have become more aligned, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it's just so hard to start off in this sort of perfect world. And, of course, we're not there now either, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that you can do to align the community and the culture so that that it really is all around trying to do good, trying to be to help people become conscious consumers, conscious people in general, thinking about how they use energy, how they use resources, how they respect people that are on the other side of the world that will be impacted from their decisions, even though they never will ever, they'll never see them in their life, And I think that's something that we've really been big into. Like, we everything from the people that care for our sheep or farm our latex. Latex comes from trees, so it's actually farmed and processed and all the way across the board. So you over time you can just kind of bring them together. So it's not really like one or the other. It's just kind of becomes the same thing. And I think that's to me, that's actually some of the most exciting part of the business.
The exciting part being like the production side and being able to really impact.
It's having an impact on things.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually, you can take an organization like 1% for the Planet. We can thoroughly support that. We can embrace it. We can evangelize it in all of our advertising and marketing and everything else. And together, us with lots of other people doing the same thing, we can help 1% for the Planet be more, bring up the awareness for that, right? Make people
Mm-hmm.
think of a different way, how they can do things at their own level and through a business. And you can do that with all sorts of different organizations and all sorts of different things. So it becomes exciting that you can use your business as almost a platform to have a positive impact, and you can keep, it just never ends. Whenever you come up with one thing that you think you've moved the needle, once you get there, you realize, there are a bunch more steps that we can actually do. We can add this on and that on, and so it, as a creative, it starts to use your creativity in a different way, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to really think about what exciting things that you can do, just for greater impact. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. I know sometimes just in all of our pursuits, it feels like it's just like an uphill battle, whether it's your business or it's something in your personal life, or, it's the effort to be more environmentally friendly. And I wonder how you, if you ever feel that way, if you feel like, oh man, this is just an uphill battle, and how you get over that.
I think if you, what is the saying? A journey of 1,000 steps begins with, the first few. Something like
Mm-hmm.
that. That's really the way it is. If you look at the big thing that needs to get done in just about in any dimension, you'll almost never do it. And so you just have to make little steps. You have to think local. You have to do incremental things, ideally toward a bigger goal, but you just have to take small actions and just keep taking small actions. And eventually they all add up and they work with other people. And so, at least that's the way I think. Because, a lot of the stuff that we do now, we would never, ever be able to do at the beginning when we started our business, because it wouldn't have been economically possible,
Mm-hmm.
or we wouldn't have had all the technology or systems or support that you would need to actually be able to do it. Just something like an organic product, when you think about the traceability that goes into that from the raw material all the way to the finished product, or you think of all the inspectors that go to it and all of the testing that goes with the materials. It gets pretty intense.
Yeah, I was very curious on your materials, and I would love to hear how you address some of those challenges in the creation, fabrication, the farming, especially keeping them clean, organic, and also at the same time not leaving a huge environmental impact.
Yeah, it's like everything. Nothing is perfect, right? But
Yeah.
with organic, it really has a whole story that has to go from the start all the way to the finished product. And a lot of people get confused with organic. They don't understand that organic, I guess technically the term means, right, it comes from nature. But organic really has a higher expectation. Organic means that that a product is certified, that it has no toxins in it and other things. But also, it has to do with how the product is actually made. You have to think of it like if your cotton or your latex comes from another part of the world, there are kids that are running around in those fields and other things. There are wells around there that affects the health of those people as well. And so, so organic and other things has a much higher standard, basically. And so we basically use all sorts of different certifying bodies to take things from the raw materials all the way through to the end product. And that helps ensure that things are tested for toxicity, that they're fully traceable from start to finish. And I think that gives people a high level of confidence in what they're buying.
So do you have recommendations or guidance for other business leaders who are trying to make other efforts in their business to stay sustainable? I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier, speaking to the baby steps of the process. Is there anything else you could add to that?
I think what's most important is that people, that you shouldn't be afraid to take a position that is not right down the center, right? It's easy to be safe, but often when you take a safe position, you really end up not saying anything with your brand.
Yeah.
I just think you're better off just going right to where you believe and setting up whatever new business or brand you have with that. And the haters can always be out there, and just go for what you believe. It's better for you. It's better for the end result. And I just think that's how you'll have a better impact as a result from what you do. And I also think that when people start businesses, they really do need to think that this whole old school mantra of how do we make money, you kind of don't need to worry about that as much. I mean, you have to make enough, like you have to eat, you have to pay your rent. But beyond that, it just sort of all takes care of itself if you really focus on making a great product, delivering a great service, being very honest with what you have, considering other people, the impact on the planet, the environment, all of those things. When you just kind of do what's right because it's right, I think the rest just works out.
Yeah, and it seems like you've taken that approach quite a bit as far as speaking to like the COVID-19 pandemic and the efforts that Avocado Mattress has been going through. You've pivoted to making organic face masks. I would love to hear about that and how you're using your current supply chain and your current materials to make that happen.
Yeah, the coronavirus, of course, for a direct-to-consumer business like us, has so many implications that are changing daily. From sourcing of your materials, shipping, logistics, being able to get things delivered, with in-home services and so on. But when it really started to hit, we took the approach of let's just start making face masks and we'll figure it out, because we've got the materials, we've got the ability to sew, we've got some of these other things. And so we opted for speed over some other imperatives. And so I think we're on our fourth iteration of our face masks. If it was in a normal world, we probably would have spent months perfecting it. But over the past few months, rather than trying to do that, we've delivered, I'm not sure, it's well over 250,000. It might be 300,000 or 400,000 by now, face masks. And so that's really cool. And and a lot of it is for us is it's sort of horrifying that when you go to get takeout or something now, the amount of plastic, the amount of unsustainable things that are being produced as a result of the response to coronavirus is just amazing. And so we had all of this organic cotton and other things, so why not just put it to use? And so that's been really great. And at the same time that we've been doing that, I think it's also made people more aware that sustainability and social responsibility, the idea that we're all connected in communities from around the world, I think the coronavirus has made that front and center for everybody. You can see how things are more intimately, how the dots more intimately connected. And so that part I'm really encouraged about.
Yeah, I live in New York City, so I see the plastic gloves and the masks littering in the streets. And for me, I'm actually very fearful of what the environmental cost is going to be, especially to wildlife who's going to be consuming these gloves. It's going to be getting caught and their digestive systems when it eventually makes it out to the water. So it's great to hear that you've considered that and are using organic cotton for this. I know not necessarily every brand is I think thinking as holistically about it. The intentions may be great, but sometimes the execution can actually be a little bit more harmful in the end.
It's interesting is we didn't actually consider it. Those are the materials we had.
Yeah.
We really only had organic materials, so we couldn't have made the other even if we wanted to. Not that we would.
Yeah. But. Well, I mean, in a way, you did consider. You considered it in the development of the product in the beginning, right? It was built into the business. And speaking of that being built in the business, two core pillars that the Avocado Mattress is standing on are sustainability and social responsibility. What do these terms mean for you? I think a lot of people use that word sustainability quite a bit without really either understanding it or being true to it. So I'm very curious to what that means to you and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, you've got those two terms. You have sustainability and then social responsibility. Sustainability is easier to understand, I think. That's a green product, that's organic. That's basically being respectful and conscious about the planet with the decisions that we make, right? So that whatever we take, we try to give back and try to keep things in balance as much as we can. So sustainability to me is at least an easy concept to understand. The social responsibility is a bit more of a mouthful, and I think if you asked a bunch of people, they might not totally get it. But for us, it really means you're considering the people, right? You have an obligation to the people, and it's those people that I mentioned before that are in other communities, other parts of the country, other parts of the world that are significantly impacted by the decisions that you make. And when you opt for organic certified products, you're opting for things that generally pay the people that produce the raw materials more, that give them, a healthier environment. It's better for the sheep, it's better for the plants, it's better for the children, it's better for their water, it's better for their local everything, and so it's just a win in multiple categories. And so they go hand in hand. You really can't have environmental sustainability without social responsibility. You can't have a healthy planet without people, and you can't have healthy people without a healthy planet. So we see them intimately intertwined.
And so, 2020 has been a crazy year already. We're not even halfway through it yet. I'm curious to what you're focusing on this year. I think everyone's business plans or goals have shifted from when they were probably in January over the last few months. So I would love to hear what you're focusing on in the next, through the end of the year or even in the next couple of weeks.
The interesting thing for us is, I guess the short answer would be nothing different, because now all sorts of brands are going to need to pivot toward being more conscious and aware, or green, or other things. This is our core business. So I think, if anything, for us, I think it's an opportunity to bring messaging on sustainability, on social responsibility more to the forefront, and embrace it even more. I don't think it really changes that much of our business. It changes how we might operate a retail store and some other things. It brings lots of challenges to delivery and logistics and all of that. But it doesn't change really anything with our business. If anything, I think it just lights a fire for everybody that's on the team, because it makes people feel, I think, pretty proud about where they work and what they're doing, because I think we do a pretty good job of practicing what we preach. So, yeah, I think if anything, the big change for us is just literally more of the same. Kind of a weird way to say it, but I guess that's true.
No, I think that's a great thing, actually. It means you own the process. It means you own the business. It means you own the words that you're saying. And I think that's a great thing. We're wrapping up here. We're getting towards the end of the hour. And I would love, just if you had anything else that you would really want listeners out there to know or do, or maybe direct them in a way that can help them get involved and participate.
Well, I think the most important thing, if I was to have a takeaway from all of this, is I think it's time for us to be more conscious, right? More in tune with all of our actions. And I think the craziness of the world right now, there are a lot of people that are suffering. There are a lot of people that are really impacted by all of this. Now more than ever, it shows people that they really need to shop their values, that they need to start taking little actions, because it all matters. You only have to walk outside right now and look up at the skies and breathe the air right now to realize, it's actually pretty fresh out there. The skies are clear, there's less noise. People seem to be out walking dogs and talking more to neighbors. And so there's, out of all of this, horrible pandemic that's been going on, there are silver linings in there that I think point us toward, a healthier direction, And so it's just time to start listening to those little inner voices and following that path.
Yeah, I know I said we were wrapping here, but your comment just cued a study that I recently read that you or Avocado Mattress partook in or organized, looking at the effects of COVID-19 and people's opinions and attitudes towards the environment. I would love just to hear a quick synopsis of that.
Yeah, it's sort of like what I was saying. This has, apart from the health and those other impacts that are related, it's definitely shown people that that all of this stuff matters, and I think it's going to push along a lot of sustainable practices and interests in green and transparency and all sorts of other things, because people are doing little things like recycling more. They're being more concerned about their waste stream, as their trash doesn't get picked up as much and they see how much piles up out there, people are more inclined to do so. And and you do that across the board with everything from energy usage to, all sorts of healthy habits. And you find that this has really forced some change, People are, Zooming more, doing conference calls instead of flying everywhere and going different places. And there's a downside to it, but there's also a lot of this positive change that I just think that it's making people more aware. And so, the study that we have kind of goes through all these sort of different factors that people are doing, and it's encouraging.
If our listeners today wanted to take a read of that study, where could they find that?
I'm sure we have it posted on our website, but if we don't, I'll make sure that we have a link in our press section posted out there.
Okay, great. Yeah, I found it in the New York Post. So listeners at home, you can always do a Google and check out the New York Post. But I want to thank you, Mark, for coming out today and participating. Really appreciate the time and all the insight. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. My pleasure.
I just want to take a quick personal note. Thank you, the listener, for joining in today. Thank you, Mark and the Avocado team, for your participation. A big thank you to 1% for the Planet for your support and sponsoring this and helping organize this podcast. Stay tuned next week. We're talking with Jamie Hoyk from Brooks Winery as she talks through navigating loss, purpose and passion in business, and how she is changing the wine scene in Willamette Valley.